And we are live. Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock. It is Monday, April 21st. I am Josh Engleman, and I'm finally joined by somebody. I'm joined by Greg Ehrenberg. He's right there. 2-game playoff slate today. Pistons at the Knicks. Knicks took game one. Clippers at the Nuggets. Nuggets took game one. We'll see where these series end up. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. Our Twitter handles are next to our bodies. Greg, welcome back, buddy. Good to have you.
Yeah, it was. I miss doing shows. I was talking with you a little bit before we started here. Really did missing the shows and interacting with everybody. Social media, there was parts of it I missed. In large part, I didn't realize how much enjoyment I would get to just be like a normal person who's not on social media. You don't get inundated by issues that don't actually exist in the real world. You go out in the real world, nobody's complaining that Katy Perry went into space. You go on social media, it's the number one thing everybody talks about. In the real world, nobody gives a shit. So it was kind of nice to not see just like nonsense all the time, but I was like posting bets in there and whatnot. And yeah, I've been looking forward to doing shows again.
Well, it's good to have you back. I didn't know. I don't really know much about Katy Perry going into space, so I'm happy that I was able to dodge that. I don't know much about Katy Perry.
Pop singer, Jeff
I know the main notes. I know the first paragraph of the Wikipedia page. That's about it.
Yeah, I don't know the whole thing because I wasn't that plugged in, nor did I really give a shit. But I did think it was funny that Jeff Bezos apparently sent his wife and some other ladies into outer space. Big time power move. Big time power move. You get upset with your significant other and just be like, well, I'm going to actually ship you into outer space. He did it. He brought her back. But it's a good thing to flex a little bit and just be like, here's what I'm capable of if you really upset me.
Just putting people into rockets and just gone. It's fun. It's fun to think about. What did you think of the opening 2 days of the playoffs? We saw, for the most part, everybody held serve. We saw the Oklahoma City Thunder absolutely dismantle Memphis. We got a really fun game out of the Clippers and the Nuggets. But I guess Minnesota over the Lakers was the only thing that was like I would say that like the majority of people were probably surprised by.
Yeah, I mean, looking through, there was a lot of blowouts. Individual games were really, really good, though. And then the other games were really, really bad. The games that were good were excellent, though, like the Clippers-Nuggets game that went to overtime, where you got the full Russell Westbrook experience. He's looking great one play. He's looking terrible the next game. Then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, my God, he hits the biggest shot of the game. Then, he's got the ball with like 6 seconds left in the end of regulation to tie game and just doesn't do anything. Just holds onto the ball and tries to throw the ball. I think it was off Kawhi's leg for whatever reason with 1 second left. But that game was awesome. Knicks Pistons, game one of that series was really good. Some of the play-in games are really good as well, like Heat Hawks. That was an awesome play-in game. So, overall, there's been some pretty good action. It's nice to have meaningful basketball games after the last, few weeks of the regular season. What happened with those?
Yeah, it's been nice to like talk about things in a serious manner and not being like, oh, well, Dennis Jenkins might play 39 minutes tonight, but because we have value everywhere, he's 2% optimal. Like I'm so long gone beyond that. And now I'm ready to just break this one down with you. I haven't had anybody to bounce this off of for a while. I had Eric once. EMAC popped into playback for about 5 minutes when I went to get a water once, which was scared the shit out of me because I didn't know he was going to do it. So I was just like, hey, everybody, I'll be right back. I'm going to go grab a drink. And I walk out. The steps are like 2 or 3 steps outside of my office. I take like the first couple steps down, and all of a sudden I just hear his voice, like the voice of God in my ears. And I'm just like, what is happening?
Which he is. We made a big deal out of EMAC for president in 2024. We didn't realize that it could be EMAC for Pope in 2025, though.
Oh, it's true. That's true. If they would have been a day earlier, man, there would have been a lot of white smoke at the Vatican just being like, oh my God, what's happening? They'd have thought he died all day. I don't remember what white smoke means. I don't remember if that means they've named a new pope or the pope is dead. I can't remember which one's which. No one cares. Do you want to talk about basketball?
We could, but not before, EMAC for president, EMAC as well for Pope. Also, want to shout out that Josh and I are going to be on playback after this. And we do have something new set up in playback where now if you guys don't have the ability to watch the games, either because you don't have cable, whatever it might be, you guys can now buy a package through our playback channel. The best way to do it is going to be through the desktop version. I'll tell you why in a second. But you guys can now watch all of the NBA playoff games. Doesn't matter what channel it's on or anything like that, right through our playback channel. You just sign up for a sub. It's $12 per month. So something new that playback was able to set up. So trying it out, see if it's something that we have interest from you guys in, but just another way to support some of the playback content. And then also wanted to have some sort of angle where we could figure out a way that people could actually all watch the games with us in playback. And now there's going to be a way to do that. So the reason that you should purchase it through the desktop version of the site as opposed to the app, there's additional fees with the Apple Store. So it's a little bit cheaper if you buy it through the desktop version. So just go to the desktop version and save yourself a couple dollars.
There we go, everybody. You can join us in playback and watch these games for the rest of the playoffs. It's going to be fun. Now we get to talk about the Pistons, and we actually have something to talk about for the Pistons, like legitimate, real information for today. Isaiah Stewart, who I actually liked as a tournament play today because I think that he fits this series a little bit better. I digress. He's not playing at all today. He's out anyway. So that completely changes the outlook of how we think Detroit is going to play and where we think some of those additional minutes are going to go. So let's just start here talking about Jalen Duren. We have him in for 30 minutes. My guess is we probably would have been somewhere around like 27 if Stewart wasn't in. He's 6,100, center only, 40% optimal, 37% owned on DraftKings. He's $900 more expensive on FanDuel. He's $7K, 27% optimal, 27% owned. How do you feel about Jalen Duren? Do you think he's going to soak up a ton of additional playing time? Or do you think that maybe they just try to go small? We'll open it up. What do you like about Duren?
Yeah, so for starters, the price point, right? He's $6,100 over on DraftKings. He ends up showing up in a ton of lineups for me over on the DK side of things. Over on FanDuel, we've got Duren at $7K. It's a little bit more expensive, but still, he's the center that I overall get the most exposure to over on FanDuel. And I don't think this really impacts the ceiling of Duren a ton. His ceiling was a ceiling either way. His odds of reaching the ceiling are a little bit higher. This really helps his floor, though. He only played 24 minutes in the first game of the series, and there's just less options for the Pistons to go to. Like, I presume we get backup center minutes from Paul Reed, but we've seen Paul Reed be in some of these situations in the past. They don't really like to go to him all that much. So I think this really, really benefits the floor of Jalen Duren. And considering his price point, particularly on DraftKings at $6,100, then FanDuel at $7K, like he's not going to project anywhere near Jokic or anything like that, obviously. But on points per dollar rate, he's projecting as the best points per dollar center over on FanDuel. So I think Duren looks great as a result of this.
I have a bunch of them. He's in 50% of my lineups. I am nervous about it because I don't think that he's very good. I think that's my biggest problem here.
Fair.
Now, it's not like I think Paul Reed is like going to usurp him or anything. I think it would take some sort of really crazy situation for Paul Reed to get a ton of playing time here. They didn't seem to want to do it in the regular season. I can't imagine they want to do it in game 2 of the playoffs. But, you know, we know that Duren is prone to foul trouble from time to time. I'm clearly going to have him because, as you mentioned, the floor now is pretty high. Barring foul trouble or injury, he's going to play every minute you could possibly want him to play to be a good play today. Yeah, I think they're going to lean on going smaller more than not.
Depends on the game. If it's competitive, he's going to be out there. If they're down by a lot, then they're probably going to get a little bit more shooting on the court. But as far as things stand, and also it's only a 2-game slate where we're kind of hurting to find value, especially in the playoffs, where I knew Stewart was on the injury report. I just assumed he was going to play, though, because that's typically what happens in the playoffs is even if guys are banged up, they just give it a go. But yeah, I'm going to be pretty invested in Jalen Duren. I'm surprised he's also not super popular.
By the way, when I say that I think that they might go small a little bit, that was not as a situation where I don't want to talk about Duren. It's more the trickle down of what I want to get to after that, including the guy that we have as the number one play in our boom bust tool right now, Asar Thompson, 26 minutes, small forward, power forward eligible. Listen to this stupidity. 4,500 on DraftKings. By the way, he's also 6,100 on FanDuel. So $1,600 gap. He's still in the top 10 on FanDuel. That's how crazy he is. I think his minute ceiling is now massive. I think his floor is incredibly high. I think he's just going to be out there. It would be really weird for me to see a scenario where he doesn't play at least 25 minutes. I think he's the easiest guy to roster today, outside of Jokic, but we'll get there.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing too is if you remember, what was it, like a couple months, like Asar Thompson, the Pistons were really hesitant to give him bigger minutes early in the season. And there was also a lot of weird coach speak about it too, where they would say like they couldn't for some reason, but they said it also wasn't health related. But then guys would be out and he'd play those bigger minutes. It was always unclear why he wasn't playing bigger minutes, Thompson, especially because it was pretty apparent when he was on the court. He's one of their best players. Like there's zero doubt about that. So now when you're in this situation, they're down 1-0, they're shorthanded. It's obviously a really, really high leverage game. I'm with you. I think he's the best points per dollar option overall on the entire slate.
I guess the next guy that we could talk about is pretty easy to talk about. Cade Cunningham sitting there at 9,100. He's the best player on the team, obviously. He's going to play close to 40 minutes if he can. 40% optimal, 40% owned. We have him second in the boom bust tool. Are you trying to take a stand on Cade? Because we do have competition around him. Obviously, Jokic all the way up at 11.5, Harden at 9,500, Towns at 9,300. And then you get this tier below him of Kawhi Leonard and Jalen Brunson. What does that make you do with Cade?
Yeah, so I'm pretty in line with the field on Cade, right around 40% of them. That's where we have him projected as well. No real stand there for me in terms of either being over or underweight to the field to him. I do have a stand on a point guard in this game. He isn't the one, though. It'll probably be pretty easy to figure out by process of elimination who that point guard might end up being. The one thing that I do think benefits some of the backcourt players like Cade Cunningham or like potentially Dennis Schroeder in this game or Jalen Brunson is where we have a lot of our value. It's in the front court, guys like Thompson, who we just talked about, or center, Jalen Duren looked like a better option now if you want to take a chance on Paul Reed, that's viable as well. To me, I think that point guard is probably the sketchiest position to fill. And that's why my preference is to pay up for guys like Cade or Brunson as opposed to paying up for Jokic. It's not to say I'm off Jokic or anything like that, but just the way that the projections line up, I get filtered to the high-end point guards more than him.
Interesting. Okay. I have infinite Jokic, so that is changing the scope of my lineups right now. I'm dead neutral to the field on Cade. Happy to get whatever I can. You know, if Detroit wants to win this game, Cade's going to do something about it. So if it's competitive, if they're bouncing back in game 2, I'm going to have a decent chunk of Cade. It's the rest of this team that we have to have the conversation about. Tobias Harris was great in game 1. Monster scoring day. 6,200 today on DraftKings. Power forward only. Kind of just a guy on the DK side. 6,400 small forward, power forward eligible on FanDuel. He's 53% owned. He's the most owned guy for the Pistons on the FanDuel end. Any takes for Tobias Harris? He strikes me as somebody that could be like a hair over owned because of that game 1.
Yeah, so I find him nearly impossible to stay away from on FanDuel for some of the reasons you just mentioned. Like the positionality, small forward and power forward eligible. The other players who have, utility at small forward or power forward, most of them are like either or. They don't have availability at both positions. So like some of the other guys that project really well, for instance, Aaron Gordon, he's power forward only. You've also got then somebody like Asar Thompson. He's shooting guard small forward over on FanDuel. Christian Brown, he's shooting guard small forward. And then the guys who are small forward, power forward, they're pretty pricey. Like Anunoby, 7,300 now. You've also got Josh Hart. He's up to $7,700. So of the guys who you could fit in at both of those positions, and then also with the Pistons being shorthanded in the front court, potentially more availability for them to go small, I think Tobias Harris is a really, really strong option. I don't think he's got a massive ceiling. I'd be really stunned if he put up like 50 fantasy points or something like that. But for 2-game NBA slates, oftentimes the floor can be pretty important, just locking in that like 30-ish or so fantasy points, especially on FanDuel. That's often enough for somebody to be in a winning lineup.
The final thing that we need to talk about, well, two things left to talk about for the Pistons. How do we sift through Tim Hardaway, Malik Beasley, and Dennis Schroeder? Because we expect a lot more minutes out of Beasley and Hardaway. Schroeder has the most advantageous combination of price and rates. Beasley has the best position and rates. Tim Hardaway Jr.'s got the good position, bad rates. They're all like, Beasley and Hardaway are about 20% owned. Schroeder's the guy getting a little bit more love at 30%. Not only that, we did see Schroeder in the closing lineup for the Pistons last time out. Now, obviously, they blew the lead in the fourth quarter. What do we make of that? What do we think is in, like, you can't like them all. I'm guessing everybody likes one of them. Do you like one of them more than the others?
Well, if you guys believe in conspiracy theories, I don't know if you saw the NBA very clearly tried to use AI to make posters for them for the playoffs. Did you see this? Do you know what I'm getting at?
Mm-mm.
So the NBA, their playoff poster for the start of the playoffs, it had all the players like facing off against each other, where it's like, John Moran on one side and then SGA on the other side. But AI kind of fucked up in terms of identifying who the most important players on the teams are. So for the Pistons, they had Dennis Schroeder as the Pistons representative in the graphic, which was hilarious. He was there instead of Cade Cunningham. So if you believe that AI knows everything, Dennis Schroeder would be the guy to be rostering today. For his price point and the point guard, shooting guard eligibility, I do think he's a really strong option, but I don't think there's any guarantees that he closes again today. He just happened to play really well and during a time last game when the Pistons went on a big run. So they just kind of left him out to play more in the fourth quarter. It doesn't mean it has to be the case again today, but I'm certainly going to be taking a good amount of shots on him. He's in 40% of my lineups right now, so I do get a little bit overweight to the field. So a little bit of a stand, but like nothing insane or anything.
Yeah, he's making me a little nervous because I do have a bit of a stand on him. But if you look back at that rotation, he played the final 4 minutes of the game. He checked in for Tim Hardaway. Tim Hardaway played 3 minutes and 42 seconds. The Pistons lost that 3 minutes and 42 seconds by 11 points. So I think they were just trying to do something different there. Similarly, the extra time that he picked up in the second quarter, 2.5 minutes. One, he didn't even play well during that stretch of time. Two, he subbed in for Asar Thompson at that point. Thompson had 2 quick fouls early in the first quarter. I think if Asar Thompson doesn't have a foul there, he probably doesn't check back in, and you're looking at like 20 minutes for Schroeder. Mm-hmm. Now, that's 2 separate guys, 2 separate outcomes, one from Asar, one from Tim Hardaway that affected Dennis Schroeder. So he can get those extra minutes in a couple different ways. And obviously, with no Isaiah Stewart here, like they do have some sort of different rotation. So I like him, but I don't want to take the stand on him because I don't think that anything has to look like it did, which is pretty much exactly what you said.
Yeah, like there's clearly an opportunity there. He's somewhat popular, not insanely popular, 30% owned. So I'm a little bit overweight to the field to him. But yeah, like if I was to run the Sims and if he showed up in like 80% of lineups, I would dial that back and I would just be nervous that the minutes won't be there for him because that's the most likely way that he ends up failing today is he's Dennis Schroeder. If he doesn't play all that well, they could just be like, yeah, we're playing, Tim Hardaway Jr., Malik Beasley more or something.
What would you like to do with Paul Reed?
Ooh. So like I think he's viable, but yeah. I didn't end up getting to him I have him in 6% of lineups. Like there's a path there for him. The thing that drives me away from him the most is first off, we've seen him how many times in this position where a backup's out, he's in line to be the backup, and then he just doesn't end up getting the minutes. That's happened multiple times, not just with the Pistons, but over, many years where we've seen this happen. But there was also a game where he was uber chalk at the tail end of the regular season where Isaiah Stewart was out, and then Paul Reed barely played. So that's something that definitely resonates with me in terms of not feeling all that secure about his playing time. I'll pull up the game right here so I could read you guys off the game log. This was the one from... Of course, my computer's slow to load right now.
Great work.
Yeah. Do you know off the top of your head okay, here, now it just loaded. All right. So we have a game here. from April 2nd, where we had Paul Reed was a really popular player. This was right after Isaiah Stewart got suspended. Paul Reed played 14 minutes that game. Now, 14 minutes
Yep.
on a 2-game slate, it's, it's viable.
Yeah.
It's something that he's a good fantasy producer. He could definitely end up doing some damage. Next game, same scenario, fairly popular. He plays 11 minutes with Isaiah Stewart out. So it's hard for me to feel great about his minutes. Now, in a scenario where Dern gets into foul trouble, then I think you're looking at a situation where Paul Reed could potentially break the slate. But I see the path for him. He just isn't landing in very many of my lineups.
Alrighty. Finally, final thing we could touch on since we don't have beef stew. We saw Ron Holland play a first half rotation and then did not see the floor again. Simone Fontecchio was completely removed from the rotation. Do you want to get to Ron Holland? Do you think Fontecchio gets back in the rotation? Is there anything else here for the Pistons?
Other guys for the Pistons. I mean, I think this is a really strong team to be rostering just from the standpoint of it being a 2-game slate where there's very, very few active there's very few active value spots. So the Pistons are, to me, the overall best team to be rostering here. But, Thompson, Duren, Cade, Dennis Schroeder, like we've hit on the guys who are most important to me.
All righty. Well, I just put this up on the screen right now. We got a super chat earlier today from Jorge. Now he's paying it forward once again. 50 subs to the YouTube channel from Jorge. Wanted to point that out for everybody. Congratulations. And shout out to Jorge for the good finish this weekend.
Yeah.
I don't know why I clicked that.
Killing the game. Jorge, who, I feel like once or twice per year, Jorge is good for one massive MLB score. All of a sudden, it's like, hey, Jorge won 50, 75 grand or something like that. So shout out to Jorge. He won the rally cap the other day when it was the $8 buy and 50K to first place. So shout out Jorge, and always appreciate you supporting the channel.
To the New York Knicks we go. Nothing too weird here. They don't have anybody on the injury report. They're just going to be themselves. And we got a very weird set of rotations for the New York Knicks that I don't think that we need to glean too much from in the first game. But the focus for New York is obviously on their starting five. Brunson, Bridges, Hart, Anunoby, Towns. They're all getting a decent chunk of ownership. They're all interesting depending on the site in their own ways. Who is your favorite Knick?
Yeah, so for me, it is Jalen Brunson. He's also the pay-up option that I'm getting the most exposure to. So he's the point guard who I have the big stand on that I was referencing before. But I thought Brunson was going to end up being more popular in this spot. He's not priced correctly either, $8,300. And Tibbs is going to play in big minutes. There was points in times last game where he was barely able to even walk, and he was still putting up points in the second half of that game where he struggled a lot early as well. I think he started something like 2 of 13 from the field or 2 of 12. Didn't prevent him from continuing to find his shots. Like, I just don't understand the price point on him at all. I think he should be quite a bit more expensive. And then he's also not crazy popular either. So I really, really like Brunson.
Yeah, he's in 51% of my stuff. He looks great. He looks great on FanDuel as well. Number 1 in the boom bust tool, 43% owned, 45% optimal. He's priced like he's playing regular season minutes and not playoff minutes. Like, he's just 8,300 is so silly for him. I don't know how you get away from that. I fully expect him to be my most exposed Knick. The question then becomes, like, how do you choose between Bridges, Hart, and Anunoby? Right now, I'm picking Hart and I'm fading Anunoby, which I'm happy with considering Anunoby smashed in game 1. And then I'm neutral to Towns, and I'm neutral to Towns because I have Nikola Jokic in 3/4 of my lineup. So how are the rest of the Knicks looking for you since you don't have the same Jokic stand that I have?
So I do prefer Jokic to Cat. So
Okay.
I'm underweight to the field to Cat. I'm still slightly overweight to the field on Jokic because he's 30% owned. It's not like he's crazy popular or anything like that. But like I have Brunson in 60% of my lineups. I've got Cade in more lineups than Jokic as well. So when I was referencing my positions for spend up options, that's really more where it comes from. It's not like I'm fading Jokic on a 2-game slate. He's just in 36% of my lineups, whereas I get to these other guys in quite a bit more. But as far as the other Knicks go, like I said, I am underweight to the field on Cat. For the wing players, I am with you. Josh Hart is the one I get to the most of over on DraftKings. I think he's a much stronger option on DK than he is on FanDuel. Get the potential
Yeah.
for the double-double and the triple-double bonuses. He's also $7,700 on FanDuel as compared to $6,900 on DraftKings. So I'm going to be very heavily invested in the first game on the slate. If I look at my most rostered players, my top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6 of my 7 most rostered players are from Knicks Pistons.
Okay. Ownership is pretty split. It's 52-48 to the early game in the aggregate right now. Yeah, right now I have the bigger stand on Josh Hart. Both Hart and Anunoby are mid 40s in ownership, along with Brunson on FanDuel. Those guys are definitely separating from the pack. Bridges is a clear 4th, and then Towns is pretty significantly behind everybody else there. But I don't find those 5 guys all that interesting to talk about for the Knicks. Like, we know what we're doing. We know how they're going to play. I'm not reading into rotations. Like, they're going to just play massive minutes every time that they can. It's the rest of the Knicks that we need to worry about. Now, on DraftKings, they're basically getting no ownership. 8% to Mitchell Robinson, 7 to Miles McBride, 5 to Cam Payne. On the FanDuel side, you see McBride getting slightly into double digits, low single digits for Robinson and Payne. Do you like any of the bench Knicks?
You know, it's funny. We just got a super chat from Jorge Rosso. He says, what's our stand on the Knicks bench, like Mitchell Robinson? There's something that happened last game that's so far out of, I mean, like, foul trouble could happen whenever. It is such an anomaly that Josh Hart played 29 and a half minutes in a playoff game.
Yep.
And it is solely because of foul trouble. So we played 29 and a half minutes. He played nearly the entire second half. He sat for a minute and a half in the second half. Josh Hart last year, if you go to his playoff games, he was playing basically the entirety of games. You know, just because the spread is somewhat wide for this game, and while Tibbs is, you know, somewhat of a crazy person, I don't think he's going to be pushing guys regularly to be playing 48 minutes in playoff games. But Josh Hart is live to do it. And the reason this is going to pertain to the super chat we got from Jorge, I find it very difficult to like Knicks bench players because, number one, I think Tibbs is going to run the starters out for big minutes. A couple of weird things happened last game. Hart got in foul trouble. Bridges sucked. The Bridges sucking part is maybe not as much of an anomaly because that's happened a bunch of times over the course of the regular season. But the most likely scenario here is that Bridges plays fine. Josh Hart avoids foul trouble. And then the Knicks starters play the majority of the game. And other than Cat, I think that every other starter is probably pretty live to play 40 plus minutes. And Cat, while I don't think he'll play over 40 minutes, I think he could certainly approach that mark. And one thing the Knicks did last game is they played Mitchell Robinson and Cat minutes together. I don't think that's as live to happen today. Number one, the Pistons are going to be a little bit smaller with no Isaiah Stewart. But then also, I think part of that was influenced by the foul trouble. I think part of that had to do with Josh Hart being in foul trouble. And I think part of it also had to do with Mikal Bridges just sucking that game. So I don't really like guys from the Knicks bench. And then also because they played well last game, I think the field is going to want to gravitate towards those guys.
Yeah, Mitchell Robinson checked in for Josh Hart in the second quarter and basically soaked up that entire rotation and got them that too big look. Otherwise, it wasn't something that they were doing. So yeah, I'm with you. I think Josh Hart looks interesting in that I'd probably like to get more. You know, we have him projected for 38 minutes. I think that he could play 46 today, and I wouldn't even bat an eye at seeing that in the box score. And I would like to have very little of Mitchell Robinson, Miles McBride, or Cam Payne. Do you have any different takes between DraftKings and FanDuel for these guys?
Josh Hart looks better on DraftKings than he does on FanDuel, so he's more of a priority there. Let's see. Other guys for FanDuel compared to DK. Looking at my FanDuel exposures. Not really. Mikal Bridges, I do think, is kind of an interesting buy low just because his price, he's $6,500 on FanDuel. He's $5,700 on DraftKings. All things considered, I still prefer Josh Hart. But my most exposed players from the Knicks are the same on FanDuel and DraftKings.
Alrighty. Well, folks, we are streaming live, not just on YouTube, but also on Playback, playback.tv/Stokastic. I will drop that link into chat as well, because on Playback, while we're streaming on YouTube, we're also sharing OddsShopper and the Portfolio EV tool. You can get OddsShopper and the Portfolio EV tool for a 7-day free trial for free at any point in time if you've never signed up for it before. The link is in the description. You'll get expected win rates and expected value, odds boost calculators, parlay builders. You could do this for sports books and pick'em sites. We've got mass betting. So if you have 5 bets available on DraftKings, you click one button, it loads everything to your bet card on DraftKings, makes it very quick, very easy, mobile notifications and more. If you want to sign up and get that link, 7-day free trial. You won't pay us a cent. You just have to click the link in the description to sign up.
Free.
All right.
There's no better price than that. And like Josh said, if you do want to just get some bets, check it out right now. The board for Portfolio EV, I've got a portfolio built and it's up in playback right now. So if you guys want to check out some bets, keep an eye on the YouTube stream, keep an eye on playback as well. You could find some of those top bets we've projected on the board right now.
The LA Clippers are 1-point favorites in Denver. You do not see the Nuggets being underdogs at home in the playoffs all that frequently. 218 total. For the Clippers, nothing to talk about here for their injury report. They don't have anybody on the list. They dumped game 1 in OT. And now we're getting ultra balanced ownership across the board to this Clippers team. 29, 33, 29, 25, 34 across the 5 starters, plus another 28, 21, and 16 to Jones, Batum, and Bogdanovic. I honestly don't even know where to start. Every one of these guys looks so similar. Do you have any stands on anybody that you want to talk about?
I think Chris Dunn is the most interesting player overall on the team just because he's got the point guard, shooting guard eligibility. He's very cheap at $3,800. He's going to soak up at least a decent amount of playing time for the Clippers. He's probably the best perimeter defender on the team outside of Kawhi Leonard. And for that reason, they like to lean on him, even if he isn't playing all that well from an offensive standpoint. But 31 minutes for him in game 1, like, I get that he's a shitty fantasy producer, but at his price point, if he's going to be playing 30 plus minutes, it's kind of hard for him to completely tank a lineup.
Don't forget that went to OT, so he played 26 in regulation.
Yeah.
Even
with that said, though, like if you're going to be getting, let's lower it. Let's say he plays 25 minutes. He wouldn't look, as good or anything like that, but even still, like 25 minutes from him on a slate that doesn't have that much value, especially in the backcourt, like you'd still be getting high teens fantasy points from him. I think he's a good alternative to Dennis Schroeder.
I'm a fan. I'm over the field. I think that he could play his way into additional playing time if need be. I think he's going to be tasked with trying to cause havoc to Jamal Murray as much as possible. So he is the guy that I have the most of from the Clippers starters. I'm a little over on Norm Powell. I'm neutral to Zubats, but the big takeaway here for me for the Clippers, I'm pretty well under the field on James Harden and Kawhi Leonard, and I'm not mad about it at all. Harden had a monster first game. We know Harden's foibles in the playoffs in the past. I don't mind not getting to him in a second game, especially at elevation. And then Kawhi Leonard, he's just like, I'm sure I won't get him right because it feels like I never get him right. I also feel like he just has like 27, 5-5 in every single game he plays. And I'm just not all that broken up about not having him. So what are you doing with the payups from the Clippers?
Yeah, so James Harden, I do not have very many lineups with him. I strongly prefer Jalen Brunson and Cade Cunningham at point guard. Those are my priorities if I'm paying up there. At the forward spot, let's see, what do I have of Kawhi? I have a little bit more of Kawhi than I have of Harden, but with that said, I only have a few lineups with Harden. I've got more of that. Like I have 14% of Kawhi, so it's an actual substantial number. It's still pretty well underweight to the field. So I'm probably, it sounds like based on your tone, in about the same position as you, where I'm underweight to both of them. They're my two least rostered pay up options.
I like it. We are in lockstep right now. Are you joining me on the same value Clipper bench guy island? Nick's starters, by the way, are exactly what you would expect. Who is your preferred Clipper bench guy? Or do you have one?
Let's see. Do I have one? I don't really have one that I would call a preference.
Okay. Not that this is a preference, but Derek Jones Jr. from an exposure standpoint is my preference. 3,200 small forward, power forward eligible. But I'm also over the field on Nick Batum and neutral on Bogdan Bogdanovic. I think the Clippers bench guys are carrying a lot of water for me in getting to Nikola Jokic as frequently as I am these 3K guys that are certainly going to be a part of the rotation. Now, Ben Simmons, not in my lineups because he's center only on DraftKings, not point guard only like he is on FanDuel, but I'm getting the bench. 43% of Derek Jones Jr. right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's the one I have the most of. I'm just in line with the field. Like he's projected for about 30% ownership, and that's where I'm at with him as well. So Derek Jones Jr., like if I had to pick a guy, he'd be the one. I just don't have like a real stand there relative to his ownership.
Okay. How are you handling Zoo? Because I feel like he's just in no man's land today. He's not Karl Anthony Towns. He's obviously not Nikola Jokic. Jalen Duren obviously looks like a completely different guy now with no beef stew. And then you just have Ivica Zubats out there, this guy that's been this incredibly steady performer for the Clippers all year. Arguably their best player, the reason that their defense is as good as it is. But how does that translate to DFS? What do we want to do with him?
Yeah, getting exposure to him on DraftKings, I find him very hard to get to on FanDuel. He's $8,500, and he's also the second most popular center option. So if your choices are either an $8,500 Zubats or a 7K Duren, and by the way, they're pretty comparably owned as well, 27% for Duren, 23% for Zubats. I prefer the salary savings on Duren in that situation. So FanDuel, I find him very difficult to pay all the way up for. On DraftKings, I get to him more than I do over on FanDuel. But once again, not like a real stand there. He's projected for 33% ownership, and that seems about appropriate to me.
Okay. I like it. Do you think they do anything weird with their rotation? Do you think Amir Coffey finds his way back in at the expense of anybody? Do you any nerves here about what the Clippers do today?
First game was competitive. It went to overtime, so I don't think there's too much risk of massive overhauls. Where we're going to have some interesting talking points is come like Tuesday, Wednesday, because some of those games are just complete beatdowns, and teams tend to really over react to a game one where it goes wayward for them. So I think teams like the Grizzlies could drastically change their rotations, but also it's a different coach than what they had a few weeks ago. So that's also something to keep in mind. But for something like today, Clippers, Denver, the game went to overtime. It was really competitive. I think that both teams could look at that and be like, hey, this game could have gone either way. See, even for the Pistons-Knicks game, I know that the Pistons, if you just look at the score on paper, you'd be like, oh, Pistons kind of got blown out in that game. They were leading for basically the entire game. The Knicks went on, what was it, a 21 or a 23-0 run in the late part of the third quarter. So I think the Pistons probably feel like they were in that game as well, and they just need to shore up some of the issues they had. So I don't think we're going to see any kind of massive changes to any of the rotations for the teams today, other than Stewart being out for the Pistons.
All righty. Well, we've got one team left to talk about. They're a bit of a doozy today. They're responsible for a lot of exposure in at least one particular player for me. Denver Nuggets looking to stay up, go 2-0, head back to LA. But they're underdogs at home today. And they had a very interesting experience in game one because Michael Porter Jr. did not play very well to begin with. He left the floor a couple minutes into the fourth quarter and then never saw the floor again. Russell Westbrook checked in the middle of the third quarter and played the rest of the third quarter, all of the fourth quarter, and all of overtime, including hitting the shot that saved the day, or at least one of the shots that saved the day. Let's just get Jokic out of the way first because it doesn't take a lot of heavy lifting here. 11-5 on DraftKings, 30% owned. He's 12,500 on FanDuel and only 12% owned. He's in 73% of my lineups. I'm just getting all of Jokic. Give me the best player in the world.
Yeah, I mean, so as far as Jokic goes, I don't have issues with them as spend up. I'm slightly overweight to the field on Jokic. I just prefer spending up for Cade and Brunson on the overall outlook of the slate. But yeah, sure. I mean, Jokic still, he's only 30% owned. I have him in 36% of lineups. I'm a little bit overweight to the field to him. He's just not my most rostered spend up.
By the way, still have 37% of Cade and 51% of Brunson. So I'm getting them both and still getting to Jokic. So I'm feeling good there. let's get to the actual best talking point here. What the hell do we do with Michael Porter Jr.? Because 6K small forward, 13% owned. There's like, he could play 38 minutes today.
So there's a betting angle I really like that's kind of similar to at this time last year, Josh. Remember there was a Pacers game. Tyrese Halliburton sucked in game one. Then game two, like there was like crazy props listed for him. And we bet him on the playback show. I don't remember the exact number, but it was something like you were able to bet Halliburton at like 7-1 to score 25 points. I think there's a similar situation with Michael Porter Jr. today. I don't know what his minutes look like. He's had a shitty attitude at times in the past. Maybe he mopes around the court based on what happened last game. Or maybe he kind of gets the message and just plays harder. I don't understand some of the alt lines on his props. He averaged 18.5 points in the regular season. Maybe you know this because you looked at my tweet. Do you know what his lines are for 20 plus and 25 plus points today?
No idea.
Plus 550 to score 20 points for a guy who averaged 18.5 points in the regular season and 15-1 to score 25 points. Like, I'm not saying he's going to do it. Those are outrageous lines for a guy who you only have to go back a week ago to find games where he was playing full minutes. So down the stretch of the season, the games didn't matter for Denver. They kind of eased up on the minutes of their guys. Here are the last games that they played meaningful games in before game one, where they were still fighting for playoff seeding. He played 35 minutes against the Kings. He played 39 minutes against the Pacers. He played 41 minutes in a game against the Warriors. The idea that he all of a sudden is just going to be some guy who plays like 20 minutes, I think that this is a really good buy low spot for Michael Porter Jr.
I'm glad we're on the same page. I don't have him in my exposures right now, but I will by the time we get to lock, which, by the way, we got projections and ownership updated. I would imagine we won't have another one since before we're done. So we should be good to go there. What else are you seeing for these starters? Jamal Murray, I'm kind of light on. You've got Christian Brown playing a ton of minutes, very flexible here. Aaron Gordon is your backup center. What else stands out for Denver?
Yeah, so just to backtrack on Porter, I want to say that he is my favorite contrarian play on the slate. Like he's been priced down. His props have also gotten killed in the prop market, and as a result, people are just not playing him in DFS for a 2-game slate. If he played his just normal minutes and was decent in game one, what was he, like 35% owned? It's at 6K today. But just because he had a bad game and comes off the court, people don't want to roster him. I'll guarantee this: if he plays doesn't have to do anything outstanding. If he plays his normal role today, and then he's priced the same for game 3, he's going to be chalk. But just because the minutes weren't there for not reasons that we could repeat, but not reasons we would expect to repeat, he's been just kind of overlooked entirely by the field. I'm going to be boosting Michael Porter Jr., and I like him a good amount as a contrarian option.
I like it, brother. I like it. What are you doing with the rest of these guys? Murray, Brown, and Gordon.
Yeah. So as far as the rest of Denver goes, Jamal Murray, don't have a lot of him. A lot of this to do with price point. I prefer Cade. I prefer Jalen Brunson. Like, Brunson's only a few $100s more expensive than Jamal Murray. He's a much better fantasy producer. And I think he's a higher floor for minutes as well because his coach is Tom Thibodeau. I mean, Brunson left last game briefly with an injury and was hobbled and still played over 40 minutes in that game. And it wasn't even a game where starters had to be out at the end of it. So it's kind of hard for me to want to get to Jamal Murray. Russell Westbrook, some of the field is probably going to want to play him because he did have a pretty good fantasy game and he played a meaningful role for Denver. But I think the most likely scenario here is that Michael Porter Jr. takes his minutes back from Russell Westbrook. So it's hard for me to justify him. The one overall who I find is really hard to get away from is Christian Brown. Shooting guard, small forward eligibility, $5,100. He also has fairly secure minutes. So the two priorities for me for Denver, it's Christian Brown and it's Nikola Jokic. In terms of like total exposures, and then relative to ownership, Michael Porter Jr.
Okay. How do we want to handle anything for the bench for these Nuggets? Because obviously Westbrook can play all sorts of different minutes today. We have him in for 26. He's 16% owned. Peyton Watson got some run. He's a value option at 3,500. I don't think that we're going to be doing anything with Jalen Pickett or Julian Strother, but what are you going to do with the bench?
Nothing really. The one guy who you could potentially be considering would be Westbrook. But like I said before, I think and also based on ownership, the field is playing Westbrook more than Michael Porter Jr. Based on what we've seen over the entire course of the regular season, I think we should expect those minutes probably to tip more towards Michael Porter Jr. So I have 3% of Westbrook, and that is the only amount of exposure I have to anybody off the bench for Denver.
All righty. Well, do you have anything else you want to touch on for the Nuggets from the FanDuel perspective?
No, it's pretty much more of the same. I'm prioritizing the early game compared to the late game. We do have some questions in Discord that we could be getting to here as well. But is there a stance that you have on a bench guy that you think I'm missing out on?
No, I don't think so. I have very little of Westbrook and Watson. I don't really have anything else to add here. FanDuel, I think Jokic is interesting on FanDuel because of that low ownership. You know, you're paying up to be a little bit more contrarian, but I don't have any sort of like unique takes for it right now.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, if anybody has questions for us, hit us up in the Discord channel or leave us a super chat. But Coach DFS wants to know, who are the players that we are considering must plays for DraftKings GPPs, Josh? So, if somebody's making, one lineup, who are the guys who you think you'd be most apt to, like, oh, I need to have that guy?
Asar Thompson, Jalen Brunson, and Jokic for me.
For me, Asar Thompson, Jalen Duren, and Brunson. Josh Hart, also pretty strong consideration for DraftKings, considering his price point. And I would not at all be stunned if we get like a 44 or 46-minute game out of Josh Hart. You just look at the minutes he played in the second half of last game, and if you start to say, like, hey, if he didn't get into foul trouble last game, like, that's what he would have played. He would have played 44 to 46 minutes.
Well, the guys that we just talked about right now are the guys that we sort of like the most on this slate. Sometimes we give them a name. And that name is Nuke of the Night. It is time to find out who Greg finds to be the best play of the day in his eyes. Greg, who's it going to be for today? Who is your Nuke of the Night?
Well, all my most rostered players in general are pretty chalky. So, like, if I'm trying to avoid just giving the Uber, like, because the answer is like kind of Asar Thompson for me. But if I'm going to, he's like the one guy who I have a ton of exposure to. He's in north of 80% of my lineups, whereas other guys who I have a lot of, it's like 50 to 60%. So Asar Thompson is somebody I definitely can't go without. But if I'm going to be contrarian, then I'm going to look at Michael Porter Jr., who I mentioned before. If you look at all of the guys on the slate who are contrarian, I mean, it's pretty clear to me that Michael Porter Jr. is the contrarian guy with the most upside relative to his price and what his role normally is.
I like your call. No problem with it whatsoever. I only have one answer here. And while it might feel like a cop-out, I honestly don't feel like it is. There's one Nuke of the Night tonight. There can only be one Nuke of the Night. And he's not that owned, but he is the best player on the planet. Give me Jokic. Just like for a 2-game slate, for his raw point ceiling, for where we have him projected. I mean, we have Jokic projected for 64 fantasy points. That's 14 fantasy points more than Cade Cunningham, who's second. I just want the raw points. I think the chances of him being in the winning lineup, even with a substandard score, are still pretty high. Jokic nukes.
All right. Yeah, I mean, it's a very reasonable choice for sure. He's not crazy popular, especially he's low owned on FanDuel, like you said before. For DraftKings, he's, pulling ownership. It's a 2-game slate. Everybody's pulling some kind of ownership, but he's what? In terms of the pay up options, he is the fourth highest owned or something like that, depending where the cutoff is for pay up options. But Cade's more popular than him. Brunson's more popular than him. Zubats is more popular than him. So it's not like he's the normal Jokic ownership that he's getting going to him.
I'm going through right now and making some subtle tweaks before I run my final stuff.
I'm all set.
You know what?
Ready to go.
We have our gimmicks. We got in our Nuke of the Night. We're running them both. Let's get it done. The growl has been played. We need to know who's it gonna be. We haven't gotten one from you in a while, Greg. Tell me, who is your white of the night? I got mine.
There's some good ones today. I'm going to go with Christian Brown. A little bit underpriced, good positionality. I've got him more than half my lineups. He's very popular. Maybe you're going to double dip and go with Jokic here. He's a fine choice. Zubats is a reasonable choice. I don't know. I'm curious to see if you dig somebody else up, but we got some good ones.
Christian Brown. I don't know if you understand what's going on here. This is white of the night, not brown of the night.
Well,
Greg
he spells it wrong. He spells it like a German.
That's fair. That's fair. There's only one answer here for white of the night. Champ status, baby. Nikola Jokic, your double champ. Nuke of the night. White of the night. The double champ. The double champ does what he wants.
There we go. There we go. As the words, I was going to say a wise man once said, but not really a wise man. But Conor McGregor once said it, and Nikola Jokic bettered his craft than Conor was at his. So no issues with that at all. I think Nikola Jokic, yeah, pretty reasonable choice. He has gotten more run on this segment than any other player in the league by a pretty wide margin.
Yeah. Yeah, it helps. It helps to be really, really good at this. All right, I've uploaded my lineups, and I can also confirm that they have been uploaded. So lineups are in. Final exposures. Greg, do you have your final exposures?
Yep, I'm all good. I've got everything set up. We also got a question from JT Mack. He wanted to know who our favorite plays are for the Denver Clippers showdown. I'll tell you what I'm going to do, JT. I will run that for you on playback as soon as we finish up here. I don't know if I'll have time to run it. I'll kick it off right now to see what it is I get to. I might have to answer that for you over on playback, though, which, we'll be there in 7 minutes. No big deal. And that game doesn't lock for a couple of hours. But yeah, I'm very curious to know what you ended up with for Porter on your exposure.
4%. I didn't get
I have 20% of them, so I'm about 2x the field.
I wish that I did. I tried to boost him, didn't do anything. Gonna move forward with it.
All right.
Yeah. Stay Off My Grass said he's Serbian, not white. Yes, because all of us are from the great land of Whiteopia. Not sure what that could possibly mean. But if Serbian's not white, I don't know what they are.
Yeah, I mean, I've what are we confusing Jokic for? Like, what do you think he is? What is he then?
I would love that descriptive. Yeah. What word is that going to be? Brandon Mahler hit us with a super chat. Any 3K players you would take a shot on? I don't think so. I don't have any. I have Batum at 3,100 and Derek Jones Jr. at 3,200, but nobody at flat 3K.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is that do you have $100 or $200 to get up to Batum or Derek Jones Jr.? Let's see if it had to be a 3K guy. Are there even any 3K guys that we're expecting to be in the rotation tonight? Let's see.
I don't think so.
Yeah, there isn't a single...
Landry Shamet. I guess Ron Holland.
Yeah, the answer is nobody. Nobody, really.
I don't have it. Man, I do wish that I had more Michael Porter Jr. That's frustrating.
Steve Schuster in the chat saying 100% fade Porter. To me, it's by the way, I get if you look at game one of the series and it's just like, all right, he's out of the road. If you're really confident that this is just his role now, I understand it. But I don't know. We've got so much sample size of Michael Porter Jr. playing big minutes in meaningful games for Denver. Like, he was a key piece of them winning the championship. So I don't. It's not like he can't play in the playoffs. He played one really shitty game. Does he play another shitty game? And maybe they just, I guess, if the shots don't fall, I just don't think that's the most likely scenario.
If he's going to be playing like this, you should be running to bet the Clippers because this series is over if you think that Michael Porter Jr. is just not going to be a part of it. They don't have enough other people.
Yeah, I I don't think that closing with Westbrook is going to work out all that often. Even at the end of the last game, we were mentioning a little bit before, but he's two-faced. Every single possession is the coin flip. And what side are you going to get? Is it going to be the good version? He hits the big corner three that puts Denver ahead when they were down 2, and he hits the corner three. I forget exactly what the score was, but it was probably the biggest shot in regulation, Westbrook. And then you get to the end of regulation on like a possession or two later, and there's 6 seconds left in the game. He has the ball. He just holds it until the clock expires. So I'm not super confident this team is just like, hey, Westbrook is closing over Porter now.
Christopher Kendrick said, is there any late swapping after lock, or are you playing straight up? I will 1,000,000,000% be late swapping before the Clippers Nuggets game starts. You want to make sure that you're putting your best lineups in the best possible position to win.
Yeah. So if you're asking from a standpoint of like, is there some massive news we're expecting that's going to change the slate? No. But there's no reason to not run late swap with just the updated live ownership and get yourself, a slightly more accurate picture to be making some adjustments to your lineups. And then, we also do have the ability, which I know Josh takes advantage of, to make late swaps, and you can enter some of the players' scores, for instance, where they're at. What's been the gap? I haven't really paid too much attention to this, but what's been the gap between the early games ending and the later games starting, or locking, I should say,
for the playoffs so far?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a half hour, somewhere in that neighborhood. I mean, some start depending on, whether they went to OT or not, but you could usually get somewhere in that like 15 to a half hour.
You have the opportunity on some of these slates to run late swaps with the player's actual final scores already locked in. Like there's good reason to do late swaps on these slates.
All right, who wins?
Okay, so I feel pretty good about the Knicks.
Okay.
The late game, it's such a coin flip, the late one. I'll go towards the Clippers to even the series at 1. Not a strong stance, just because it's what I'd prefer to happen. I think it's more entertaining if it's a 1-1 series than if Denver's up 2-0.
Knicks Nugs for me. I think Nuggets take it again. I think they're tough to beat at home. And I'm not a believer in the Clippers offense, and you need every bit out of James Harden being perfect offensively. Otherwise, they're in some trouble, I think. Defense is real good, though. Yeah, I mean, their defense is incredible. Zubats is amazing. Probably, he might be the most underrated player in basketball.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw, but the early voting returns, it's kind of changed. But the first handful of votes that were in for most improved players, Zubats actually had more votes than Dyson Daniels had, which you had brought it up initially, and then I looked more into it. I think Zubats is probably the rightful winner of that award. He's not going to win. It's going to end up being Dyson Daniels, but I think it probably should have been Zubats. For me, like, I would have wanted it to be Cade, but that's just because of betting preferences. And I think Cade absolutely would have won if he didn't miss those games because of the calf injury. I do have like a general takeaway from that, because this is 3 years in a row that there's been a significant favorite to win a year-end award who got hurt or rested towards the tail end of the season that massively changed the landscape. It was Cade this year. It was Malik Monk last year. It was Quickly the year before that. So it is something that I have a takeaway from, which is if somebody's a big favorite to win an award and then they're getting rested or they're hurt at the end of the year, it's probably worth taking shots on other guys, because the voters have pretty short memories.
Well, there we go, folks. We are at lock in 7 seconds. So upload your lineups right now and go to playback.tv/Stokastic. We're going to watch Pistons and Knicks. Don't waste any time. Come join us. It's Greg. It's me. It's right now.